Today I fucked up by saving my neighbor's life. For starters, this literally just happened 10 minutes ago, and be ready to buckle up because boy is this one long. So, my fiancée, F29, and I, M30, have lived in our current apartment for 8 months and have had a pretty decent experience overall. It would be perfect if it wasn't for the neighbors that moved in about 4 months ago. Just to set the stage for what we have been going through, these neighbors throw parties that start at 4 a.m. and end at 2 p.m. all the time, and when they aren't having their parties they are just blaring music loud enough to make Helen Keller ask them to TIFU all day long. Both my fiancé and I work from home, so this can get incredibly annoying, but nevertheless we soldier on. Which brings us to today. Today I noticed from my office that there is a persistent beeping. After about 5 minutes I go to the living room and ask my fiancé if that was our neighbor's smoke detector. She said that she thinks so I went to investigate. I go out in the hall and notice that the sound is coming from their apartment, but I don't smell any smoke and the door is cold to the touch. So I figure they have it under control and go back to my apartment to continue working. About 20 minutes later I notice it is still going off, and by this point my dog is freaking the fuck out. So I go back to the hallway, smell smoke, and courageously bang on the door. No answer. I continue banging on the door but no one is responding. So I do the only logical thing and call maintenance. I give maintenance man, henceforth the rundown on the day's events and he says he'll be right over. Problem solved, right? Wrong. Because this, dear listeners, is when the story gets fun. Arrives, goes to the neighbor's apartment, and does his maintenance thing. When no one answers he goes in and the horrid smoke detector finally stops. I am just about set to go back to my work when all of a sudden there is a knock on my door. I open it to find standing there on the phone telling another member of maintenance to get the police and ambulance on their way over because he thinks the kid next door is dead. Then looks at me and says, "I need you to come in here with me in case he is faking an attack." Now, I have been in some fights in my youth, but I am in no means someone who is prepared to duke it out with anyone holding any kind of weapon. Not to mention the fact that has a good 2 feet and 120 pounds on me, so if he goes down I'm all but fucked. So naturally I do the responsible thing and agree to go with him. We enter an apartment filled with smoke and I see a burnt pot on a stove covered in the foam from a fire extinguisher. Apparently a fire had started and put it out and opened all the windows to try to get rid of the smoke. And, sure enough, passed out on the floor, is one of my fucking neighbors, henceforth fire starter, a kid I am assuming is around 23. Proceeds to shake and nudge fire starter in an attempt to get a response. But this kid ain't moving, folks. We're in there for at least 5 minutes trying to get this kid up, so eventually tells whoever he is on the phone with to get the ambulance and police over here now. Apparently, police was the magic word because Firestart wakes the fuck up and goes aggro on takes it like a champ and proceeds to tell Firestarter he is a dumbass and almost burning down a building is not okay. Firestarter just keeps yelling for to get the fuck out. I had beyond backed out into the hall at this point. Keeps his cool and just keeps saying, "Man, we just saved your life, show some goddamn respect." Firestarter then asks for MM's name so he can report him, which gave, then asked for my name so he can report me for trespassing. Refused to give my name saying, "He's the only reason you're alive right now, you useless shit," to which Firestarter grabs a kitchen knife and starts waving it at him. Keeps his cool, collects his keys, and walks off, all while Firestarter chases him down the stairs being an incoherent little shit. In the meantime I have predictably retreated to my own apartment only to have Firestarter standing outside my door screaming, "I know where you live, you piece of shit." Good times. Too long did not read. Dumb ass young violent neighbor passed out and caught his stove on fire. I called maintenance, thereby saving his life, and now I am looking for a new place to live. Update. Just got done giving my statement to the police. Thank you to everyone who was asking for updates. It's for sure a fucked up take that is far from over. I'll provide updates as I hear things. He's committed so many crimes in that incident I don't see him staying around there. Refused to give my name saying, "He's the only reason you're alive right now, you useless shit." Sounds like is owed 2 by 1 dozen donuts. You need to call the police, tell them what's up and to come and talk to, or arrest that guy for threatening you with a knife and after you saved their life. That way at least he will get a wake-up call that he almost died. Seems like that's not MM's first time dealing with that. Maintenance man checking in, most people wouldn't believe the shit we see. Sometimes life is better when people just die. How ungrateful. Maybe call the police and file together with the assault charges against the dude. Ensure the apartment owners know so they can start eviction proceedings or refuse to renew a lease. This was 10 minutes ago, 36 minutes ago. I'm assuming police and ambulance arrived by now and OP is likely still dealing with everything. Hopefully he can update, as this is a seriously twisted series of events. Good on OP and M for doing the right thing, regardless of how bad of a person Firestarter seems to be. Today I fucked up by exposing my uncle's foot fetish at a family lunch. Using a throwaway for reasons which will become clear. For context, I'm a medical resident. That's as much identifying information that I'm willing to provide, but my job is relevant to this story. The names in this story are not the real names of the people involved. So I've had a foot fetish for as long as I can remember. No idea where it started, I've just always looked at women and, if their feet were visible, like if they were wearing flip-flops, I'd check them out. Not in a creepy, all-consuming way, just that I thought attractive feet added to a woman's overall beauty. Years ago when I was still in med school, I'd gone round to my cousin's place one afternoon because we were going to see a movie that night. I got there around 3, but he wasn't scheduled to get off work until 6, so he left a spare key out and I let myself in. I'd brought a bunch of schoolwork to keep myself occupied until he got home. While I was there, my Aunt Kate came by to drop off some food and we started making small talk. Now it's important to interject here and let you know that my aunt is an attractive woman. Not like an aunt that you'd see in porn, but still attractive, and at that time was in her early 40s. In addition, she has really attractive feet that are always pedicured with nail polish, etc. I've never thought of her as a person sexually, but she just has really attractive feet. She asked how med school was going and what I was studying at the time. I mentioned that I was studying for an anatomy exam and, in particular, the musculoskeletal system. There was a bit more chit-chat, and before she left, she wished me luck for the exam and said if there's anything she could do to help, to let her know. I don't know why I did what I did next, chalk it up to being a horny early 20-something, but I took her up on her offer. I told her that actually, there was one area I was struggling with, and if she had 10 minutes, would she mind helping me out with something? She agreed and asked what it was. I told her I was having trouble wrapping my head around the musculoskeletal makeup of the ankle and foot, and would she mind if I used her feet as a reference point for a few minutes. She was more than happy to oblige, and so I brought all of my books and paperwork over to the couch. She sat on the couch and I sat on a beanbag. For the next 15 minutes I basically gave her a foot massage while hiding a boner harder than Chinese algebra, taking a few notes in my notebook every few minutes to make it seem legit. She just watched TV while I did it, occasionally commenting about how it just felt like she was getting a foot massage, and that it felt nice. I finished up before it went on for too long, as I didn't want her to get suspicious, and thanked her for helping me out. I mentioned I was going to go to the bathroom to wash my hands, and while I was there I busted one of the most intense nuts I've ever had to do this day. It was hard to look at myself in the mirror after that one. I had never told anyone about that incident, and I assume that she never told anyone either. It's been probably 10 years ago now and it's never been mentioned before now. Fast forward to a recent family gathering we had just after Christmas. From the moment my aunt and uncle walk in, you can tell they've been arguing in the car. They had that look about them where they were annoyed at one another, had agreed to put the matter aside until later, but were still getting in little jabs here and there when they could. During lunch one of my cousins makes a joke about how they're bringing down the mood of the event, and asked if they wanted to get it out into the air and that the family could act like a bit of a mediator for their argument. Well, this just added a lot of fuel to the fire. Without going into the finer details of their argument, my uncle had basically accused my aunt of, amongst other things, being selfish and unwilling to sacrifice her own time for anything that didn't directly benefit her. She started rattling off historical examples of circumstances in which she had been selfless and offered her time to others, and among her examples she listed, "And what about the time I let Jack rub my feet for his med school exam?" I froze, and I could feel everyone's eyes turn to look at me. I quickly explained that I wasn't rubbing her feet, but I was in the middle of some anatomy study and used her feet as an example for some diagrams I was referencing. She backed me up and said yes, it was for study, and this seemed to quell the weird looks that people were giving me. My uncle, however, explodes. "Oh, so you let Jack rub your feet but I, your husband, ask can you think it's gross that I find your feet attractive?" A silence falls over the room and everyone looks at them. My aunt goes into damage control, insisting that they talk about this later, but my uncle isn't having any of it. She insists that she was just helping me out with some med school study and that it wasn't a big deal. Oh, so helping Jack out with schoolwork isn't a big deal. But when your husband asks to give you a foot rub on our date night, then that makes you uncomfortable. At this point half the family is stifling back laughter while the other half is trying to defuse the situation, suggesting that they just go to separate rooms and chill out for a little while. My uncle agrees and walks off down the hall, still trailing off about, "Yeah, you'll go to a room with Jack and get another foot rub, but you won't let me touch them after I've paid for your pedicure." Over the last few days I've had a few people ask me why I decided to choose my aunt, of all people, to study the feet of all that time ago, and I've just palmed it off as her being there at the right time and place for what I was studying, and while some people have said it's a bit weird, they haven't asked any questions past that. I'm anticipating every extended family dinner from now on being very awkward however. Now that everyone knows I massaged the feet of the aunt who won't accommodate her husband's foot fetish. Too long did not read. Years ago I gave my aunt a foot massage under the guise of med school study, and recently, during an extended family dinner, we discovered my uncle has a foot fetish but my aunt won't let him touch her feet. My one and only edit to address some stuff in the comments. Yes, I know what I did was gross and inappropriate. It had never happened before, nor since. Call it a crime of opportunity. I don't look at my aunt as an object of sexual desire, I just think she has attractive feet. That's it. More than just names were changed in the story. The main beats are correct, but there's a lot of obfuscated information. My aunt is not related by blood. My uncle is my mum's brother. I do not live in the US, Australia, Canada or any other country that I've seen mentioned in the comments, so I can't speak to the timeline of a medical student at 24 years of age in those countries. Finally I realize what I did was inappropriate, but some of the comments below comparing consensual foot touching to sexual assault is pretty weird. I'm not going to pretend that what I did was normal, but it cheapens the experiences of real sexual assault victims when you claim that someone who had their feet rubbed for 15 minutes after giving consent is the same as someone who was the victim of forced sexual acts. Are we just going to ignore the fact you jacked off because you got turned on by your aunt's feet? LMAO. Tomorrow's post. Today I fucked up by exposing my incestuous foot fetish to the internet. I think the foo here is you getting turned on and jacking off to your aunt's feet. Not exposing your uncle for thinking his own wife's feet are attractive. Geez, I hope none of your family visit this sub. Op ignored the real TIFU. You lied to your aunt so you could touch her feet and get sexual pleasure from it. That's creepy as fuck, dude. Cool story, nephew. Dude, this doesn't help our image. I promise anyone who sees this, all foot guys are not into their aunt's feet. LMAO. This reminded me of when my cousin found my uncle's porn history and came running out like, "Uncle Bob has been watching something called Girlfriend Footage, OMG. And every started laughing and making fun of his foot fetish like, what girlfriend footage? What does that even mean? Until the one person with a functioning brain in the room said, you mean footage? TIFU. By giving my husband a blow job. So this happened a few minutes ago. My husband woke up for work and went to the bathroom to pee, put on deodorant, brushed teeth etc. He did all of this naked and came into the living room where I was. He was being silly and started doing a wiggle dance, obviously making his dick swing around too. I ran up to him with the intention of sucking his dick for a minute, but immediately after I put it in my mouth a drop of pee hit my tongue and I almost threw up on him. He's lucky I didn't lol. Now I want to point out he always uses a wipe to wipe off his penis after peeing because we never know when I'll put his dick in my mouth, but when he did his little dance it spun some out and yeah. So yeah, that's how my morning started. Tears of joy. TLDR. This is actually just me adding more letters to this post, you don't have to read this. So apparently I didn't write enough in the text above for the moderators to approve it for lack of enough characters, so I'm adding this in hopes of it being enough, because even though it's insanely embarrassing to me it's too funny not to share. It is however too embarrassing to tell someone who knows me, so here I am. Hopefully this is enough letters because I can't think of anything else to say except that I think these posts having to be 750 characters is dumb. Edit. Okay, so wow, to clear up a few things so I don't have to type it many times. I'm being asked a lot, what guy wipes his dick after peeing? Answer. A guy that gets random, drive-by, dick sucks lol. The random play is just something we do. I also randomly pop out my tits and he will give them a quick suck. A little pee never killed anyone I know, but it's not pleasant when it's in your mouth, unless that's your thing. Also, I'm pregnant with a sensitive stomach, which is probably why I gagged, but it's gross to me either way. There's no reason to feel sorry for him. As soon as it happened I said no, pee. Between gags and he died laughing. After we composed ourselves he apologized whilst I was dying laughing. Sorry guys, I don't have a TED Talk to talk your mates to do the same to you. Maybe whip it out and see what happens. Just make sure it's been a while since you peed tears of joy. The mods would be proud of how many letters I've used now lol. Oh yeah, also the mod said I had to put, too long did not read. With any added text, that's why it says that. And yes, it is not shorter, I wanted to make sure I pleased the mods. You can wiggle, you can shake, you can make it do a dance, but you'll always get the last 3 drops in your pants. Your mouth was his pants. Because we never know when I'll put his dick in my mouth. Do wives like these really exist? How can one be that lucky husband? 5/7 attempt. What's the difference between a Bud Light and licking a vagina? Licking a vagina only tastes like pee for a few seconds. I thought you were going to say you tried blowing on his dick instead of sucking. I'm not sure if you were just surprised, but pee doesn't typically taste bad enough to make you throw up if you get 1 drop in your mouth. It's amazing what people feel compelled to share with the world. TLDR. She gave a BJ to her husband, he peed in her mouth. Today I fucked up by giving myself HIV. So, a few years back, in high school, I donated blood with a company that came to visit us and tell us about the importance of donating. I felt that it was important, so I signed up and did it. Little did I know that by giving them my information, the company would bother me for the rest of forever from different phone numbers to give more blood. They were really after my precious life juice, and for years continued to call me time and time again. One day, when I was with my friends, I got really fed up and thought it would be interesting if I told them it wouldn't be such a great idea to donate because I am HIV positive. Then, I hung up, and I'm pretty sure they never called me again. Well, flash forward to today. My dad opens a letter from this company, saying essentially that they think I have HIV. For the next 15 minutes, me and my dad were in a state of shock, panic, thinking that I had this horrible disease. Just as I was about to call my doctor, I remembered what I had said. My dad was pissed but definitely relieved that I didn't actually have HIV. I definitely won't tell anyone something like that ever again. Too long did not read. Gave blood, they called for years, which annoyed me. I said I had HIV, got a letter that made me and my dad think I really did. False alarm. No HIV. Just throwing this out there, but they also are probably notifying the people who received your blood donations that they might have been exposed. Here's a pro tip. Next time just say you have been getting tattoos. I think you have to wait at least a year. If they call again, say you got more and they aren't going to verify this. Just say you're gay. As fucked up as it is, they don't want blood from gay people. Or they didn't, IDK if that's still the case. You might have jinxed yourself, better get tested. In the future, try the phrase, put me on your do not call list. Are you type O positive? The first time I gave blood and they learned my blood type 1 got bi-weekly calls for 2 years. I used to get the calls all the time. Oh, with beautiful veins, they must have me on a list. I just tell them I've gotten a tattoo. They don't call me back for another year. By then, I've got a new tattoo. Oops, sorry. Another good one is saying that you're trying to kick a coke habit. Both are big no-nos for my blood services. Maybe you've had sex with someone who has possibly had sex with a gay person. They really hate gays too. Now that I've received modified blood products, Rogum, if anyone's wondering, I have a more legitimate excuse. That was stupid, and so is this clickbait title.